All right, welcome back to another episode of Paladin Financial Talk. Most people think that they're asking financial questions, but what we have found is really people are asking something that's just a little bit deeper. And so I'm your host today, Nikki Foley, and I'm joined by our feature advisor, Miss Ellie Robison. Welcome, Ellie.
Thank you, Nikki.
Well,
I'm so excited for this.
I am too. I love my time with Ellie, and I feel like we don't get enough of it. And so I'm looking forward to our conversation today. And we're in our second episode of our series where we're talking about the most common financial questions people ask. And really, is there more to that question? And so today, Ellie's going to take us through what she finds is one of her most popular questions. And like I said, this is part of a series. Mr. Foley, Jeff started us last week with the question of, can I retire or do I have enough to retire? And so I certainly think that that's one that we run into. And then not far behind that is the one that Ellie is presenting us with today. And that is, drum roll, I already kind of gave it away a little bit there. So
Is what are your fees?
yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty human nature is people, one of the first things that they want to know is what are they going to pay for something? And so what we find as we are exploring some of these topics, like I said, is there is a question, but there also might be a misconception behind the question. And we're going to talk about how we might reframe them and help get to really what is the foundation of what they're looking for and why they're asking and the deeper truth that can help people make better financial decisions.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, Ellie, let me talk about Ellie for just a second and how we got to meet each other. This is one I don't think that we have shared on the air before, but Ellie is our featured advisor. She has been with Paladin Financial. We're going on 4 years.
Yeah.
And so Ellie and I met rewind the tape a little bit before that. So Ellie had her first, I think it was a temporary job, maybe an internship with Piper Jaffray, which is now Piper Sandler. And she was in the creative department. And that's not where I met Ellie. I met her later in her creative career. So she was a graphic designer. But that first step at Piper Jaffray was really her step to say, what is this whole financial world? And it piqued her interest in what could be for her. And so when I met her, again, she was still doing the graphic design and using the creative part of her world, which I think she actually applies to what she does today. She really likes the design behind it.
Oh, yeah.
But she was in the phase of maybe I don't want to be a graphic designer. I think I want to be a financial advisor. And so I had the pleasure of working with Ellie through that process. And then lucky us, we got to have her join the Paladin financial team as she was going through that. And so Ellie, tell us just a little bit more. That was the high level, but tell us what you love about this and a little bit more if I left anything out on your
You know
resume.
what? I think of myself still as a designer. I'm just working with numbers now because as a graphic designer, you are taking people's problems of like, what are we trying to do here? And reworking it into a solution of what's our CTA? What are we trying to drive to this event? What are we trying to do? Same thing with your numbers. You're giving me your numbers and I'm reworking it to hopefully get you to where you want to be, whether it's retirement or leaving a legacy someday or whatever that might look like. So it's just solving a problem just in a different manner.
I love that perspective. And you know what you bring as you talk about that story and the lens that you look through, we are only capable of really looking through the lens that we know. And so for you, it is a creative design lens.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I know that we've talked about this in the past. I love the people aspect of it. And so whatever your passion is, you take that with you wherever you go. And it is all about how you can bring the best version using it through the lens that you know. I know Mr. Foley, he is far more analytical
His
and
spreadsheets.
he does. And so you can approach it so many different ways. And I think that's a key piece as our listeners might be thinking through who they are and the lens that they look at is finding somebody that really aligns with them is all part of the equation along the way.
Absolutely.
As well. So did I leave anything off of your resume that you want to share with our listeners today?
I guess just bridging the gap between how did I go from graphic designer to financial advisor? I made the career change, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7-ish years ago now. And it was during COVID is when I really buckled down and did all my licensing. Thank goodness for that time because I was just clocking in at work, clocking out, and then studying for the rest of my evenings. And that's what got me through all my licensing of what I have today. And so I do uphold the fiduciary status and I am working in my client's best interest. And I have other licensing if I need to wear that hat and it applies there. Awesome. But it took a lot of work to get up where I am today. And that was just to kind of help him bridge the gap of how I became a designer into how I am operating here today, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you for going back and sharing it. It probably was a key piece of this that I just
Yeah.
skipped right over. I told our story of how we got here. So with that, let's get into the question of, go ahead and repeat what our question is and the one that you run into most frequently.
When you had given us this topic as advisors and just knowing that we were going to talk about this, this month, I was racking my brain because I get a lot of repeat questions from people in different phases of life. Like I get the same questions from people in their 20s and 30s, same questions in 40s and 50s and whatnot. But one question that I hear across the board, it doesn't matter how much money they have or how old they are. Sometimes people just start the conversation with, what are your fees?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I wanted to talk about that here today, is because I think it's very applicable to everyone out there.
Absolutely. I'm glad you took that approach to it because we do work with, much of our niche is working with pre-retirees and retirees. Really, you can zoom out that's just really the end goal. If we're at whatever point, it doesn't necessarily matter where you're at right here and where you're starting. That's ultimately where everybody is going.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about real world and give us a scenario when that might come to be and how you run into it, and then we'll keep going.
Well, let me think through. So, for example, we have different prospective clients that come through our doors through different manners. One of my repeat clientele that comes through my door, they come through the Dave Ramsey SmartVestor Pro system or program, I should say, where they, have completed the Peace University. They are working on their baby steps, and then Dave Ramsey says, "Hey, you're in a good place to start working with a financial advisor. Consider working with Paladin Financial." And that's where we have a little bit of credibility with that partnership. A lot of times when I get those people on the phone, the first question that they ask, or what they might be thinking, is how much is this going to cost me, without really realizing what we are doing as advisors. I think when they have never worked with an advisor before, they have zero clue what they're getting themselves into. And so I think that's where a lot of those questions come from, is how much is this going to cost me by working with a professional?
Yeah. That's really human nature to approach anything in life of, what's this going to cost me and where do I put it into the budget? And then we keep on moving. And what I heard you say there is, yes, that is a number, but boy, there's so much more to it. And let's get past that question and talk about the value and the benefits and what you're actually going to get for that number.
Oh, yeah.
Is that fair?
Absolutely. Just because not every advisory office is structured the same. I think that is also something that's just complex about our industry, is we're just all built differently. For example, hedge funds, they have a 2 and 20 structure. Some of the highest fee structures out there, where they are billing you a 2% asset management fee no matter what happens to the market. But if they turn a profit for you, they are taking the first 20% of profits. That's on one range of the fee structure. On the other range of it, where you might have lower fees associated, might be within your 401k plan. Everyone's paying a type of fee, whether it's something extremely nominal, or maybe it's something a little bit above average, where that advisor that might be tied to your 401k isn't helping you in a full holistic retirement planning way. They're just looking at your one piece of the pie and just advising you on just that. So looking at it from a scope of what are you looking for in services as you come through our door, if you have something in mind, almost consider leading with that of, hey, I have this problem, I want to do this. And then we can kind of meet you in the middle of what you are wanting. We have a lot of flexibility as an independent advisory firm, where if someone is coming to me and they just want help with a backdoor Roth, nothing else, and they just say, hey, I need some assistance, I like doing everything myself, I have full confidence I'm doing everything okay, but I really want to make sure I don't mess this up, great, then it might just cost you a couple hours of our time and that's it. And we don't have to have an ongoing relationship if you don't want. Or vice versa. Hey, I want to be well equipped for retirement. Okay, perfect. Let's onboard you and let's make sure that we tackle your tax planning, your estate planning. Like, let's make sure that we have all of your ducks in a row, not just with investments, but with everything else too.
What one of the pieces I picked up on what you said there, and I don't think this is the language you use, but everybody comes with some sort of preconceived thought when they sit down and they start the conversation or do a phone call. And you only know what you know and what you've had exposure to. And so as you ask the fee question, you may lead with that, but really that might be somewhat, there's some misconception around all of that. And it is so much more about stopping and understanding what the relationship could look like and understanding the model that they're navigating in this current scenario.
Absolutely.
And
I
I
would
think
agree with
about
that.
those Dave Ramsey calls, the way that that situation works is it is not only us that they are interviewing. So somebody is affiliated with, a listener is a fan and has gone through some of the Dave Ramsey training. They will say, yep, I want to take the next step and work with an advisor. Well, there's going to be several advisors that they get to interview. And our process might not look exactly like the next person's and the next person's. And so
Mhm.
really it's this whole process of information gathering that they're going through, but hopefully that's creating some aha moments
Oh, yeah.
along the way, and they can keep building on it to start creating what they do want and what's most important to them on the list of values.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, what I heard you say, I think, and maybe recap this, is find out more about what services they really are looking for and lead with what do they want? What do they want as part of this, interaction and relationship? Is that fair?
Totally fair. Because the costs that we might have or we might present to you might be dependent on the complexity of your
Yeah.
situation too.
Yeah.
And that's just it is what it is. If we have to put more time into it, there might be a slightly higher cost associated with it as opposed to a one and done, just need help with a backdoor Roth contribution and I
Yeah.
don't need to work with an advisor beyond that. Great. There's going to be a lower cost associated with that.
Ellie, if you don't mind, I'm going to interject on a scenario because you brought up the cost of 401ks, and oftentimes that can be a lower cost, but the value that the person they're working with, oftentimes, one, they don't even know that they have access to somebody that's available to talk to them about their 401k. But let's talk about that for a moment. I was with a couple where she was preparing to retire. She had, I believe it was over 2 million in her 401k. That's where she had put all of her money into through the years. And what she didn't realize was, and I share that number with you because it's important to the conversation, that she was paying a fairly hefty number or a fee to go along with that 401k.
Mm,
And when I shared what our relationship would look like and what the fees would be associated, there really wasn't that big of a difference. And it was an aha moment for her A, to realize that she had a fee that was associated with the 401k and what the amount was. And then if you look at that, she wasn't getting a level of service and what she would be getting from our relationship, you can quickly start to put your head around, well, what else am I getting? Do I value that? And, is it a benefit for me overall? So
mhm.
it's good to bring the real life into these
That is a
conversations.
fantastic example. Absolutely.
So, as you go through this, we talked a little bit that there can be some misconceptions as you move into and start asking the question, well, what are the fees? And you come with some preconceived thoughts. But let's talk about the experience, and maybe there's a deeper truth or underlying concern when people ask about those fees.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think as an underlying concern, sometimes I get a little hesitant of like, ooh, has this person worked with an advisor before and they might have gotten burned by this advisor? That is not uncommon for us to hear
Yeah.
of people who have had advisors in the past, did not have good service, and they are extremely hesitant entering into a new relationship with an advisor. It's almost like dating around, honestly, where they bring baggage with them.
Yeah, good perspective to
So
say. Yep.
sometimes that is an underlying concern of mine if they're come right out the gate of what are your fees is because they've been burned in the past, unfortunately. The deeper truth is of how I think of it, especially with your example, is by not working with an advisor, it can sometimes cost you
Mhm.
costly mistakes over time where maybe you're 2 years away from retirement and it is possible to retire, but because you weren't working with an advisor appropriately in years prior, you might be paying higher taxes in retirement now,
Okay, Ellie, I
right?
have to use an example with this. Okay, so I know that you just bought a house, and tell me if this resonates with you. We've been in our home, I don't know, 20 years, 14 years, something like that. And it's time that we upgrade some furniture. And so you think about when you go to upgrade, you have the couch, and if you need to purchase a new couch, that comes with, a dollar figures. And then if you need to do chairs or if you need to do light fixtures and blah, 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 it all adds up.
Mhm.
Think about the cost of a rug. And if you make a mistake, those can be costly mistakes. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
as soon as you said that, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this on my own. And if I make a mistake, that can be
Yeah.
1,000, 2,000, 6,000,
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
dollars along the way.
Oh, yeah.
So same concept applies here on the financial side.
And you're just talking about decorating.
Yeah.
Imagine like we're doing some remodels in the house. Quickly found out as we entered into this house in November, December that this guy was a do-it-yourselfer. He had done some things very incorrectly that we now have to spend our money on fixing.
Okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, when it comes to your finances, like your finances in your financial plan, it's yours from start to finish. You're not selling your finances, in a house,
Yeah.
know. But that is one thing where do it right the first time so you don't have to go back and fix your costly mistakes because you felt like you couldn't afford it or you were being a little frugal
Yeah.
and didn't want to put the extra money at the time into something that's going to give you quality long term.
Yeah. Such
Truly.
good perspective on that. And I think something you said there triggers me to say, it's okay to state what you want when you come in and you're interviewing a financial advisor. And while your mind might be leading with a number and asking or leading with the question of what is this going to cost me, there's also the reality of what can you afford? What do you need out of the relationship? And maybe we can create something that works and aligns exactly with what you are looking for. You just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So
And that's, I think, the beauty of us being an independent advisory firm because a lot of those big names out there, those Walmarts and Targets of financial services, they can't really work with you and meet you in the middle of what you are wanting. They kind of have to adhere to the bigger business model where we've had the luxury of what you and Jeff have built over time of like, we can be flexible. Let's try to meet our clients in the middle of what they are wanting and what they can afford to.
absolutely. And I think that I'm going to expand on that just one step further is we are not trying to be the biggest, but what we are trying to do is have a real relationship with people. And when you have a real relationship, it means you have real conversations and we figure out how we can work together the best way possible. And so, yes, you might want to lead with the question of fees. It is critical part of the conversation, but tell us more. Tell me more. Is
Yeah.
I think the piece that I heard you say, so we can understand, is there a misconception tied to it? What is the deeper truth that is making you lead with that? And then how can we figure out how this can all work together?
Exactly.
So with that, as you're sitting across the table from a prospective client and you hear that conversation of fees, what do you hope the next step is for that prospective client? What do you hope that they might ask, say, wherever you want to go with that?
In the conversation, I am hoping that they do have some type of goal or dream in mind, right? Like, it is going to be impossible for me to do my job if we're not working towards something. Some people are a little bit more concrete and they say, I want to retire at 62. This is my hard goal. Or 55. I want to retire early. I want to get here. Some people are a little bit more fluid where they say, I don't care when I retire. I just want to be happy, healthy. I want to gift, a couple $100 a month to the grandkids. I don't really care when. I just want to make sure that I live a happy life. Fantastic. Let me make sure that I build a plan for you that makes sure that you are not paying a lot in taxes, that are making sure that you leave a legacy, like trying to hit all the nails on the head with your hammer there of what are we trying to do, I guess, with your money?
Yeah. So, as somebody may prepare to work with a financial advisor for the first time, and maybe it's ringing true to them that fees are what's going through their mind, or it's something that has prevented them from moving forward, what would you give advice to them on of what can they do today to have a takeaway or a different thought as they approach that conversation of starting with an advisor?
That's such a hard question, Nikki. 'Cause I feel like we've already talked about this a
Yeah.
little bit, and uh, maybe they don't need to do anything differently. I think that's a very fair question to be asking us. Like what is the cost? But making sure that you have that vision in mind of maybe the service level that you want from us. Do you want to have a close relationship with us? Do you want to be hearing from us? Once a quarter, once a month? Are you willing to pay more for that? So it's trying to find what are you wanting to spend in relation to the services that you are wanting to.
Yeah, that's absolutely such good perspective. I would say that we've covered a ton in a really short amount of time, but it has been really rich in our conversation. And what can somebody do as they start to navigate a relationship with a financial advisor? And even taking that a step back is, do you want a relationship with a financial advisor? And back to your conversation about homes and doing it right the first time, maybe it's at least worth a conversation and a consultation and a complimentary consultation about what it could look like.
Absolutely.
So, next steps and kind of closing this out, is there anything that you would recommend or a resource of any sort to have people do a little bit more research on fees or what it's like to work with a financial advisor or anything like that?
I do really like the Dave Ramsey question. So when you put your name through the system, he gives you some suggestions on like what questions to ask advisors as you are shopping around. One of those questions are the cost of make sure that you
Mhm.
understand what the advisors are charging you. So he has a good program out there, but you know what? Listening to other podcasts, not just ours out
Yeah.
there, like shopping around and like doing your true research and not just listening to your neighbor because they filed for Social Security at 62 and my cousin did this
Yes.
and my parents did that. You really have to shop around and find something that fits for your lifestyle and your values and your wants and your needs, not just because someone else down the street did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say another resource that Jeff introduced last week that would fit perfectly with this is you talked about Dave Ramsey has questions. We also have created a set of questions that is, what questions to ask a financial advisor when you're interviewing them and when you're going through the first meeting. And so I want to offer that again today is as a download that if anybody is interested in that set of questions, that we would get that out to them and make that available as part of the show as well. And so, again, if you want our copy of the questions to ask a financial advisor, we can make that available to you as part of our downloads. Anything else, Ellie, that you would recommend as we wrap up our conversation today?
Not in, I guess, the vein with the costs of services, but I think here at Paladin, we highly value education, right? And making sure that our clients understand like some base level of knowledge before we start working with them and creating a relationship. A couple other resources, I guess. I love NerdWallet.
Yes.
Like for clients that are trying to figure out which credit cards to use and just like some basic finance things that maybe advisors don't spend a lot of time on when we're with our clients. Starting there is a really good
Such good
resource
advice.
too.
Absolutely. I know that one of the things that I recommend for so many people is a high yield savings account. It's not a tool that we or a product that we can offer. I send them to NerdWallet all the time.
Yeah.
Look at your list here, which one, and we have the conversation. So
Yeah.
great offering there. Anything else that you would recommend besides Dave Ramsey and NerdWallet? And again, if anybody wants that download, we can offer the questions.
Can't think of anything, Nikki.
Perfect. Well, if something today prompted you to say, "Ooh, that sounds like me," we do offer a second opinion and a 15-minute consultation, no obligation conversation. And that usually is the next step that we would recommend from people that are listening. So if you're interested, going out to paladinfinancial.com, and in the top right corner, there is a booking link. Hit that and then look to set up a 15-minute consultation with Ellie or one of our advisors. And you can just have some of these initial questions that are on your mind. We'll cover that in the 15-minute consultation. And then if you'd like to come in for a second opinion, we can certainly take it from there. And as always, I would say follow us on our social media. Back to that conversation about education and learning about somebody before you work with them. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Follow us and hear more along the way with the conversation we're having. All right. Anything else before we wrap up, Ellie?
No, thank you, Nikki, for your time today. I always have fun with you.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks for joining us for Paladin Financial Talk. We look forward to talking to you again.